Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Reverend R. Canterney watching Pan TV. Does the world sometimes seem to spin a little too fast for you? Huh? Boy, the words of these songs, they'll tell you something if you let them. I tell you that. You're watching Pan TV, and I'm in the studio. You know that somebody had to get me down to the studio, because it's not that I don't love y'all, but it's a lot of work coming down here. Y'all ain't paying nothing. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't going to buy my CD. Oh, I don't have no CDs. Y'all ain't coming to my website. Y'all ain't doing nothing to be helping me come down to the studio, but I'm down here anyway because the wonderful people that put this whole set together, they need the exercise. Yes. Now, you know, I don't normally have to do this, but I'm going to put on these glasses tonight. You say, well, why are you putting on those glasses, brother? Because I got a lot of stuff here. I need to be able to read it so I can tell you about these special people. I said special people. Right, I always have special people. These are special, special people. I got 2 doctors with me. How about that? What you got? You got what? You got 2 aces. I got 2 doctors. I've got Dr. Claude Spivey and I've got Dr. Dena Spivey. Dr. Dena Spivey is known as the 4-time Apollo-winning songstress. Now you're getting interested, right? Yeah, you thought I was just hanging out by myself. Not down at the studio. I always bring some folks with me. Look, all jokes aside, they have a lot of good information to share with you. But more than the information that they have to share with you, which is just a plethora, the idea behind what they're doing is even more important. Now, the reason that I say that is because you know a lot of people who say they're going to do something. They're going to save something. I like the ones that talked about, why did Barry go and sell that? He shouldn't have sold it. It should have been somebody else. Not one of them had a nickel to put in the pot. Not a nickel. They were just talking out the side of their neck. But when you find people who say, you know, this needs to be done, and then go about doing it, it's very hard to get more special than that. And then when they look like you and they're doing it, that makes it even more special. You say, well, you know, you don't know how I look. Well, if you're watching the show, you probably don't have nothing else to do, so you look like the rest of us, even though you might not have our tan. Okay? You still look like us. You know what I'm saying? I'm just letting you know. Now, the thing about what they do is that they have reached back and made this their mission. Yes. You understand what I'm saying? This is their mission, to reach back and lift up some of the former R&B singers and blues singers that you've heard of that may be destitute at this point because they weren't getting paid. They may be having hard times because you listen to the music, but somebody stole it. Mm-hmm. You see? And when somebody says, you know, enough of this, we've had enough. And then they say, you know what, we're not going to look for anybody else to do anything. We're going to pick the mantle up. Yes. And we're going to take it forward. And we're going to travel from one end of this country to the other end of this country, finding the people that we have to find to pull this whole thing together. That's pretty special, don't you think? Makes you want to look in the mirror and see if you're special now, right? Well, just listen to their story. You might have something special in you, and you might have something special enough in you to help them some way, somehow. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Now, I did tell you she was the 4-time Apollo-winning songstress, but I didn't tell you about the other doctor, did I? One of the original P-Funk folk. Yeah, see, he still look like a P-Funk guy. Don't look at that. Got the hat and everything. He still look like he pick up that guitar. You know, probably still can. I'm telling you. So you can see that we're in for a great night, not just the history part, but an entertaining night, because some of the stories and some of the battles that they fought and they're going to share with you will make you feel proud of yourself. You know, sometimes we look at the news and we want to go in the corner somewhere and hide and say, dang, that ain't me. But these people will say, will give you a feeling where you can say, you know, I'm really proud to be who I am, because there's some folks out there that look like me that are doing some very positive things. Now, Reverend R. Ken has taken enough of your time. I think it's time to meet these very, very special people, and I want to welcome to the show. Doctor, pleasure. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here.
Pleasure to be here.
Doctor, can't say that often. Yes. Pleasure. Glad you're here. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Now, let's start with as close as we can get to the beginning of you guys' journey. Why did you feel compelled, because you have to be compelled to do the work that you're doing, why did you feel compelled to go back and search out some of the former artists and try to help them and pull something together? We'll get to what you pulled together. Who wants to start?
You want to start?
Yes, I thank you for that opportunity, and I thank you for allowing us to be here in your presence. And this mission is a labor of love, first and foremost. And this journey is because I was one of those artists that went through the journey of having material taken from us, no identity. And a lot of the artists that we are working with right now is going to bring the essence that they have been gifted to have to the audience that has missed them for the last 30 to 40 years. And that's a part of our mission. But in this journey, it's been a 15-year journey to find these artists, these pioneers, these legendary artists and we're going to do the whole spectrum from gospel, jazz, blues, R&B, funk, reggae, country. We're just going to cover the whole spectrum.
Oh, wait a minute. Country?
Yes, sir.
You got to go deep to find some brothers and sisters with the country thing. Y'all are really digging hard.
Well, believe it or not, it was us that created country music.
Okay.
And the journey, again, that we have been abused and miscalculated in this journey, and a lot of the music that you're going to hear in this upcoming 4th of July weekend that we have planned. You're going to be recognizing some of these artists. But first and foremost, this journey that we just identified, this is going to be 54 years that I'm in the entertainment music industry.
Okay.
And we had some of our pioneer artists pass away in the most horrific way, that they left here with no even burial money to get buried. And that was one of the saddest things that we had to witness.
Okay.
And these artists that we're talking about have been missing for the last 30, 40 plus years. We even go back to the 50s.
Okay.
Is real special because that's how pretty much we started with the doo-wops on the corner. And we were identified as a takeoff from the Temptations. So they said that they needed another identity for us to bring forth. And the combination that made the Parliament Funkadelic, who we are at this joint because we're still out there, is a combination of Jimi Hendrix, Sly Stone, and James Brown. Is what made the sound come to be that you know of as Parliament Funkadelic.
All right. Now, Dr. Dena Doctor.
Yes.
You can't have one doctor out there without having a strong doctor right by his side. So how did you buy into it, this whole mission? I know you've been in the industry, but how did you buy into it? And then I want to ask you, so I can give you a heads up, how did you start with your singing career? And it's quite interesting. So first of all, how did you buy into the mission?
Well, it was very easy. When I met Dr. Claude, I didn't know who he was. And everyone told me that, oh, you know, I know him. He was like the first radio disc jockey for Rutgers University. He also was a professor at Rutgers teaching art. He was a graphic artist and still is. And he basically was one of the original founding members for the Parliament Funkadelic. And I didn't know who he was, but after I met him and we fell in love, and some of the people we went out, and one of the people that we met, I won't call their name because you will know exactly who they are, they passed away. After they had already gathered themselves together and had a reunion. We were going to go in the studio and redo some of the old music, and then he passed away. Well, little did we know that at the funeral where I sang, and this is in Plainfield, New Jersey, there was no burial insurance, and the body was being held. And so we basically had to have the hat passed at the funeral before the funeral director would bring the body out. And that's very emotional, very touching. So we decided that we had to do something about that, because when Dr. Claude started talking to a lot of the other members, and of course the same story was relevant, because if you're out there performing in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the gift is there, the talent is there, you just love what you're doing. But as far as having pension plans, Social Security, and different types of savings and whatever, wasn't happening. And the business savvy that a lot of the young people who have even less talent the business savvy wasn't there at the time. So now that these artists are in their 60s and 70s and 80s, they're having physical challenges, some of them, and there's no, help for them. And some of them have passed away, and you go around and pretty much ask family members and friends to contribute to the burial. So we decided that we had to do something about that. So the Rhythm, Blues, and Funk Foundation was created, and we decided we had to recognize and pay honor and tribute to these artists who had contributed so much. And even though Dr. Claude said that these artists are missing, they might physically not be where you can see them, but you hear their music every day on the radio, in elevators, in businesses, in stores, and even on television. But they're not receiving any types of royalties or residual income from it, so that's the problem.
Wow.
Someone else that actually understood the business aspect actually took advantage of that. And so now what we're doing is putting together, which I think you and I looked at before, we have the new thing, which is a New Millennium Multimedia Music Technology Platform, where these artists can now come forth and do new music. Because let's face it, if you've been singing for 40 years and you've been doing it very well, how good are you? They still sing.
They still sing, right?
They still sing, and they're good. I don't know if he brought any with him, but some of the artists that you would know have already started creating their own music that they can have their own intellectual properties to, and they'll have their own copyright. Therefore, they'll receive that passive residual income and royalty that they're entitled to.
Well, now, the fact that they can still sing, one of the local channels here, you sometimes can catch them at night, and they have the doo-wops on. And it's surprising to hear some of these guys that can still hit a high note. They may not be able to hold it as long as they used to, but they can still hit it. It was just incredible to hear them. But now let's kind of backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
To be a 4-time Apollo winning songstress, you had to kind of start with a good foundation. So give us a little history about your particular situation on you getting started singing. I know part of it was a little religious background there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I am the granddaughter of a pastor. I'm also the daughter of a pastor.
All right.
And so I came up, my father at the time was an evangelist before he became a pastor. And he evangelized through the Midwestern states, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio. And so one of the things he always wished he had was a choir. And my mother could sing. She always sang every day. But she was taught by her father, who was a pastor, women pretty much, you're looking at an old time in the early 1900s, women were to be seen and not heard. So for her, she didn't want to sing by herself in public. She did it around the house all the time. But I picked that up. And by the time I was 4, I could actually sing in front of people.
Wow.
And so my father would always ask my mother, who was Mary Magdalene, he would say, "Oh, please," he said, "when I get to the end of the sermon," he said, "just strike the song up for me so I can get my breath and clear myself." He says, "and then I'll promise you, I'll pick it up on the second line." And she says, "No, it'll make me too nervous because that's not the way I was taught." And so I pulled on his pants. And my father was at that time considered a big man. 6'1" was big at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would pull on those pants and I said, "Daddy." And he would say, "Yes, baby, yes." And I said, "I can sing." He says, "Okay, okay." He says, "Please, Magdalene," when I finish. And he would go right back to her, and every week it was the same thing. So I decided I was going to stay on those pants until they paid me some attention. I pulled on them. He says, "Yes." I said, I can sing, Daddy." He said, "Okay." I said, "Okay." I said, "Don't you want to hear me?" And he says, "This one is pretty persistent." And I struck out on "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." And he teared up and he says, "Wow." He says, "We have a mockingbird." And I said, "Everybody sings." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yes, sir. Everyone sings." And he said, "Well," he says, "I'm going to come in early tonight. I want to see what God has given me." And everyone could sing. So we actually did an a cappella group that became his built-in choir for about 21 years.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Wow.
And I had this thing going on with me about doing this because I heard a couple of artists that had switched over. One was Aretha Franklin, but you know, she went from Precious Lord to R-E-S-P-E-C-T. And my father said, he just did that. He didn't say anything, but I didn't think that meant anything good. So before that, Sam Cooke had went from the woman in the Bible days that had touched the hem of his garment to, darling, you send me. And he said, like that. So of course, inside I thought it would be not so good to do anything other than, you know, gospel music. Well, I grew up and I moved to New Jersey, and I figured nobody would know. I said, nobody's going to see me that knows me, right? I'm in a brand new place. So I kind of got pulled into secular music with the desire, the drive to sing was so embedded that it was like, you know, like in church they say it's like fire shut up in your bones, like that.
Okay.
So that singing once a month in a choir that maybe there's 50 to 100 people in the choir. And the director or directress says, well, boom, and they don't pick you that Sunday. And you have all this singing that you got inside, right? So eventually, when I started singing secular music, I could love it because I could sing 15, 20, 25 songs back to back to back to back.
Okay.
So, and the reception for it was there. I didn't find that in the gospel world. It was restricted, you know. It was
They didn't choose you
no,
every Sunday.
There was a
What was wrong with those people?
Hey, they had to do what they had to do. Give everybody a chance.
If they knew they had a 4-time Apollo-winning songstress in their midst, they might have picked you at least every other week.
Yes.
You think?
Then the rest of them would have been upset. So I started singing secular music, and I did the Chitlin circuit. That was fun. And then it started to get a little more sophisticated. I got picked up by an orchestra and started doing weddings and bar mitzvahs and inaugurals for senators and, you know, different types of political events and birthdays, you know, whatever it was, sororities, fraternities. And I did that for about 11 years.
Wow.
And that was really a lot of fun. And so when my father passed away, well, he found out I sung with Stevie Wonder before he passed away.
Oh.
I thought he would.
Did he go to?
No, no. You know, I was so surprised, Pastor Ken, because when the word went out, you know, that I had sung with Stevie Wonder and everything, and somehow or another it got down to Mississippi. I'm thinking like it'll never get there. Maybe it might get back to Chicago, but no, it got to Mississippi. And he called me and he says, "Baby, you're still singing?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, you know, as I always said, don't ever stop singing." I said, "I promise. They'll have to throw dirt in my face for me to stop." And he said, "I've been hearing some things down here." I said, "So I'm not, inside I'm not nervous, right?" And he said, "Did you sing with Stevie Wonder, you know, like last week or something like that?" I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it was me." And he said, "That is great." He said, "That's wonderful, darling." He said, and he really blessed me, and I thought he was going to be disappointed. And he just gave me the blessing that I needed to just go on and continue, because what I am is a universal musical communicator.
Okay.
So whatever people need to move themselves forward from the blocks and barriers that they have in life, music is the
universal language.
The universal language. So I found that I could really open people with this vibration, with the spirit and with the sound, and most of them became my friends. Oh. And in church, people were kind of competitive.
Oh.
You know, they're kind of competitive. You know
they were in the church and with the spirit and everything. Yeah. They had the other spirit, which we don't.
Right. Well, we'll talk about that another time, right?
We don't believe it. Yeah, we don't. But now, and that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful situation. P-Funk. Now, you know, you told me on the phone we were talking. I just give them this, and then we want to get into what you're doing. But you said, you know, the line you gave the line. The guy that did doop boop boop boop. That was me. Now, what do you do? What do you do at P-Funk?
Did folk the sucker? Did folk the corner?
All right.
Did folk the sucker?
Now that they don't know that. They don't know that. They'll know all that. They'll know that. Oh, 3 of them out there right now saying, "Oh man." we have an event coming up. You call it the Woodstock.
It's the Midwest Vintage Woodstock Festival.
Okay. Now, the idea behind the festival, is this when you're bringing artists to perform live? Is this
Yes.
what this is about?
This is that combination, but the essence of something that took place in the 60s that was one of the phenomenons of our time. The universal language, as she said, is music. And because music gravitates the spirit, that's one of the things that took place back then. And what we're looking to accomplish here in this millennium, those artists that made history 44 plus years ago, we have captured that essence, but we want to put the essence of vintage.
Okay.
These are the pioneer, legendary artists that we want to bring back to the forefront, so this generation can have more relativity to who these people are that they've been listening to on the radio, grew up, and never identified the music that had a spirit that was driving that force. So that's the essence that we are in the process of creating this year, the 4th of July weekend, and it's on roughly 200 acres of land that this is going to be created on.
Now, is it at Woodstock again, or where's it going to be?
No, here, it's because I'm here in the Midwest, and I was one of the people that was at the original Woodstock.
Okay.
We have looked at the incredible talent, the gift that's here in the Chicagoland area. We have invited a host of artists to take part in this. We're just going to cover the whole gamut. But this time we wanted to add some of the things that did not take place in the 60s at that original Woodstock.
Okay.
We have added gospel, jazz, blues, reggae, R&B, country, again, and funk, where I'm originated from.
Okay.
And we figured this is the first time all these genres have been able to come together. And for 4 days, we're going to have the most valued time of our lives. But we want to incorporate something a little unique. We want to use that word family reunion.
Okay.
Because of the time frame that has come and gone. This would be the largest family reunion that we know that could capture the essence of that universal language called music.
Now, at this event, I know you mentioned, one of you mentioned the fact that you wanted to let the folks know that have been sampling the music, where that music came from, the historical perspective that is required for you to appreciate your ancestors, appreciate your heritage. Just, we have a few minutes left.
Yes.
How is it that you plan to get that? Is it just by bringing them together? Are you going to have workshops, or what types of things are you going to do?
Yeah, that's interesting, because there is a education component that we want to not just do it for this one event. This event is actually going to be the start, but we're looking to do a documentary concert series out of this. Okay. We're looking to host at least 50 states and 9 countries, God willing to give us the strength and the wisdom and the grant at that time to make this journey fruitful for these artists. That there is a passive residual income for these artists to create new music that they will have ownership in. But more importantly, since we've been here, we've been entertaining a host of the young, talented artists here. One gentleman in particular, he's going to be the new Quincy Jones, and he has a host of talented young men and women that's working with him. We had the opportunity to meet with him, and he's sharing the gift that he has. And we said, here's a combination that will make history in his making. And the young man is called Spike Rebel. But my wife said, that sounds just a little rough. So she
at the time he
pointed.
took on that name, he was a young man. And now he is matured. And in our times of sitting to be with him, we saw a transition. And I shared with him, I said, I don't see the rebel anymore. He says, no, it's not that, but the name, I got stuck with it. And I said, well, you know what I see now? I said, I actually see Messiah. Messiah Spike. And he actually has such a great talent and a love that he said, wow. He said, it's interesting that you see that. He said, because I know that. I want to help everybody. He said, but I need help myself at times, so that's why he's working with us as well. But he's known as Spike Rebel, but the new, I would say, transition that's happening in his spirit is Messiah Spike.
Wow.
And he's so talented and so giving and sharing. And we're going to be presenting a lot of the artists that he's working with, that he's been working with, that they'll be presented at the Midwest Vintage Woodstock Festival. Now, you mentioned earlier, where was it? It's actually almost 200 acres of land in the Kankakee County area, Pembroke Hopkins Park.
When I hear Pembroke, I think about the Black Rodeo.
Yes.
Huh?
That's right.
Yes.
Yes, we're going to have we already have been advised that we need to put an area for the horses because many people down there ride their horses.
Okay. Wow.
Yes.
This is, man, I told y'all, what I tell you? You know, you need to, that's what, you need, some of y'all need to come to church where I'll be telling y'all about it. Y'all going to see a little bit of that. I don't be disappointing y'all. 2 doctors. 2. Both of them heavy. Bringing it to you. The history of music. I know some of you are going to want to call the numbers that you've seen so we can definitely keep you abreast on what's happening, break this out to you. Make sure you get more information because just sitting back and talking to you among yourselves is not going to get it. You talk among yourselves to say, how can we get there? How can we participate? I know what we're going to do on the 4th. That's what it's all about. Right there, you know, don't just sit back and say it was a great show. And we've got like 30 seconds. I just have to tell you, I thank y'all both for coming. This is where you can't be on the screen because this is why I get in some boo-boo. Look at y'all. Y'all got to stop sitting around, man. You got to get involved. You can't wait until they close the schools to go protest. You got to be involved before they close the schools. Okay, so don't sit around and then all of a sudden read about Woodstock, vintage Woodstock on the 5th of August. Work on being a part of. This is Reverend R. Ken Turner. I know I'm a little rough, but I do love each and every one of you because there's only one power, one presence in the whole universe, and we're all a part of that, and I can't help but love you, even if you don't love yourself. Blessings and bliss until next time. Thank y'all so much.
You know, this old world keeps spinning around and around and around and around. And sometimes it seems to spin entirely too fast. And it's at times like these when we need to just stop and get our own rhythm. Because you know life has a rhythm. And Mother Nature has a rhythm. And yes, love has a rhythm. All the world's insanity. Fill your heart with music tonight. Satisfy your soul and ease your mind. This old world keeps spinning around and around and around and around. And sometimes